I just thought of something that I wanted to just ask you real quick, if that's okay. And
Hmm.
that is obviously with concussion protocol, especially with other sports and stuff. In downhill, I think it's evident that at the race something can be done. I'm not sure what's done, if I'm honest. I
No, I
don't know
don't know
if you
the
can
test.
enlighten me. I don't
Yeah.
know what's done. But I think what's interesting is a lot of the injuries and stuff are done away from a stage where there's hundreds of thousands of millions, I don't know, people
Hmm.
watching. So I think a lot of that has to fall on the athlete to like manage their own head trauma and stuff like that. Like, do you look at it totally different now? Do you have like advice for people out there that are maybe if they hit the head, like what would you tell them and stuff like that?
Yeah, so there's a few parts in that question. Wait. So
Yeah,
first of
apologies.
all, no, it's all right. The World Cups, there is no support for people with who do head injuries. It is crazy. I witnessed Cade um have a concussion in practice, and they said if he feels good, he should go back up. Not his team, the doctor. Um,
Wow.
and Celia, actually, their physio did a really good job at, taking him to one side and testing and being like, Cade, I don't think it's a good idea. And Cade
Mm.
kept saying to me, I was like, well, and obviously I think for him it was very close to home because he had just witnessed what I went through. And I think a lot of people were kind of judging him a bit, being like, oh yeah, but it's so close to home, like with Tahnée, obviously you're going to be scared. And Cade kept saying to me, he was like, look, I just don't feel right. He was like, and for Cade to not feel right is like not very rare. So I was like, Cade, just like sit this one out. It's just a World Cup, like, and then see how he go. Turns out he didn't race the rest of the season because he just didn't, he didn't feel right.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, we definitely, I think now the riders, we've got a union, and that was our number one priority going into next year. Like, we need, it's not just head injuries, that's obviously the scary one, but we also had Brooke on the side of a hill for 4 hours straight, and
Yeah.
couldn't feel his legs in Mont Saint Anne because the helicopter guy was on his lunch break. So it's just like we're world class athletes, and I feel like we need world class care. We can't keep, giving this show and not getting the it would just be nice to know that if we're risking that much, we have the people there that we need in case stuff does go wrong. Just that reassurance, so that we can give our best on race day without being in the start gate like, well, fuck me, then this might be the end of it. It's not nice,
Yeah.
like,
No.
because and we are competitive and we are going to give our best no matter what's on the course or who's waiting for us. Like at the end of the day, when I'm sat in the start gate, I'm still going to go 100% because that's who I am and that's how I'm built and that's how my mind's built. So kind of shoot ourselves in the foot, by still doing it. But I think now we've got a union and we saw the amount of people that got concussions this year and then still raced and then broke themselves or, just there's
Mm.
a lot of conversation going on around there. And then yeah, and then again, when you go to see doctors, like you had Ollie told you, you just had like whiplash. I think it's very hard to see, and like the NHS, they do as much as they can, but I guess, like unless you're in critical condition, I understand they need to prioritize people. You can't see a head injury, and like my scans
Yeah.
on my head, I went private, luckily, through Red Bull, and my scans showed nothing on my brain. Like there's
Yeah.
like no swelling. There's like
Mm.
there's nothing. I did some reaction tests, and my reactions were like some of the best they've ever seen. And I was like, yeah, but that's not the part of my brain that's affected. I couldn't say enough. I was like, surely you can see that I'm a shell of a human. Like I said to him, I was like, my emotions, it's not my reactions. My I couldn't quite. And then the fact that they said that, you then feel crazy. And then this is the problem:
Yeah.
is people go home and then they're like, oh well, the doctors say I'm fine, but you feel anything but fine, and then you feel like you're overreacting, and then your brain gets even more stressed. And I would just,
Mm.
it's hard to give any advice because everyone is different as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you know something is wrong, then you've got to speak to loved ones, close ones. You've got to try and find solutions, but you can't put stress on yourself to try and be normal. You just have to like it's a waiting game. But anything from like conversations to people, to me that was tiring. Having like a 10-minute conversation was too much. I couldn't like eating a banana was too much. Going to the toilet,
Yeah.
brushing my teeth was too much. So I feel like you have to just switch off the brain for a few weeks and then see how you feel. But that's like complete rest. Like I can't emphasize enough
Mm.
that, and it's very hard. obviously, again, it's a lot easier for someone like me that's paid to go and race, and I can take the time off, and I do have the support. I think someone with a 9 to 5 job will find it a lot harder to turn around and be like, I'm struggling here. So yeah, it definitely needs more support, but at the minute I do feel a little bit helpless in that area.
Yeah.
I think it's
beautifully put.
Sorry,
by the way.
really
I rambled
good.
on there.
No, really
really
well.
good.
Really well put.
I think the fact that you talk about it and stuff, like I wish that I had when I it was a really long time ago when I had that period, and I think like I wish I wish I could have just seen someone else. Like the thing I've learned, I guess, is that, like, when you have something go wrong, talking to someone about it's so valuable. Regardless of what it is, it can just be a broken arm. If you just speak to someone who's also broken their arm, it just makes you not feel like it's quite a lonely place. And especially if you're a mountain biker and I would imagine you're the same as me. Like I don't have much outside of mountain biking. Like all of my friends and everyone I speak to is in mountain biking. And as soon as I'm injured, I just feel like I just go away, and just to have,
any friends.
Yeah, exactly. You do feel that way a bit, don't you?
Yeah.
And like, I remember just thinking, I just wish I'd known. I think it's good that everyone talks about head injury now way more.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think
more.
what you said as well, like what you're both saying about talking about it, is super important. Not only just talking about it like to your inner circle, to your friends, to your family, but also using the platforms you've got to talk about it. Because obviously people just want to share on social media. It's just highlight footage. It's just like, look how fucking sick my life is.
Yeah.
But people actually need to understand all of those bad times. And, you know, Tahnée, Olly, obviously huge platforms. And it got me thinking as well, Tahnée, about what you said about like Brooke. So Brooke came on the podcast before we even started doing this, Olly, and Brooke spoke about that accident. It was like the first time. But actually doing those things and using the platforms is what actually makes change happen, because that did spawn actual change. Like the UCI reached out to Brooke after all that, and not saying, you know, me or the platform has anything really massive to do with it, but it is important that you actually talk about these things and don't just hide behind it and think that sponsors don't want to see that, or the general public don't want to hear this from me, because
that is actually, you've nailed it there, because I know that my followers dropped hugely when I had my concussion and when I was sharing about my concussion, and obviously I can understand that people don't want to see that, because I'm also a victim of, you avoid bad news, like that's just what happens. Like, I think we don't want to see people, you know, left, right and centre getting injured doing something that you're quite happily going out and just poodling along and having fun with your mates and not thinking about getting injured. And that's fine, I get that, but there's also, now I just feel like my path has kind of changed, because so many people have reached out and said that they've had years where they've broken relationships, they've lost their job, they never felt the same, and it's been like 5-6 years and they never questioned that it was a link to their crash and their concussion, and now they have a weight lifted off their shoulders. They feel like they finally understand, and they're going to go and seek, you know, some professional help about their anxiety and depression, and that to me is like worth so much more than losing a few followers on Instagram, you know. So
did you enjoy this clip? If so, please like and subscribe. The full episode is available by hitting one of the links on the screen right now, or type The Ride Companion into your favourite podcast app. We've even put links in the show description for you. Cheers!